Hi, I've been asked a lot about decision making and basically how do we do that, especially in times of challenge or crisis and that kind of thing. So really decision making is one of the three skills I talk about, which is making great decisions, collaborating powerfully, and also being creatively brilliant. Okay, but the decision making thing is all about, well, how do you make great decisions? Well, I was challenged about that today. So how do you make great decisions? The thing is, it's not really about making great decisions first time. It's about following this path of excellence, and the fact that we get into this idea that you know the first right answer is not necessarily the best right answer, but it's important to make decisions and to have a process for doing that. You know, how do we do that? Well, the first thing is that we have to have a certain level of self-awareness. If you look below where this video is, you'll probably find a link to a download that you know will help you understand some of these models. But yeah, so first of all, it's about self-awareness, and we have to understand that we all have biases. So that's the first point. I've got it here, down here, as we're all thinking, doing, feeling and sensing and communicating animals. So how do we use all those intelligences like behavioural intelligence, cognitive, social and emotional intelligence in a way that's really effective? One of the things that we have to do is understand that, you know, as we've got a preference for this, we quite often ignore what the other opposite preference is in this. I'll go through this bit here. So this, I sat down and thought, well, you know, what's the thinking process all about? Now, obviously, the map is not the territory. What I mean by that is that any model is going to be incomplete and probably inconsistent, and must be, you know, continually refined and adapted, because there's a limit to our ability to actually observe reality within precision, and certainly to write it down in a board. Decision making is a lot more complicated, complex than this, but if we chunk it down, it enables us to understand the whole process. Okay, and remember that feelings and things, messages around the body can move around, you know, especially under pressure, at like hundreds of miles an hour. You know, it's really quickly, it moves really quickly. But anyway, the first thing we do basically is use our social intelligence, and we sense what's going on out in the world. It's our ability to perceive things through our senses. So we sense what's going to happen, and we evaluate what we think's happening, and then we categorize it, good or bad, basically. And this is the instinctive brain. Okay, and so the instinctive brain, if you like, part of the brain, will just react. And so if we categorize it, this is bad, it's bad for our health, we'll immediately, you know, fight, flight, or just react to it, put out the fire, if you like. So we go to a reaction here, and then that gives us a result, which then we go up here, and then we use our senses to evaluate again. So there's always this cycle going on about, you know, we do something and then come back and see if it works for us, then we do something else and come back. If we get past the reaction stage, okay, we'll go into what's known as rational thinking, if you like. So we'll analyse something, we'll think about, well, what does that mean? And if we're observing something, just going through a process of research on that situation, we'll just go analyse that situation, then go back to, right, well, what are our options? And then we'll go to big picture thinking, hopefully. Once we've analysed it, we'll then conclude, well, this is what we should do. Okay, we'll strategise, let's make a plan about it. And then, normally, okay, if you're a thinking, doing kind of person, or sort of a rational person, you'll go into a rational response. Most of our stuff is built on rational thinking. You know, governments work on rational thinking, bureaucrats, it's autocratic and bureaucratic at that level. And so we say, well, you know, this makes sense. So we go into a rational response, and that goes up, and then we sense whether it's been right or wrong. But of course, what we have to remember is that it's from that worldview. It's not a complete picture. So rational thinking only gives you half the picture, if you like. If we are the type of people that are more socially and emotionally intelligent, we prefer these as our ways of looking at the world and moving and working through the world, if you like, then we'll strategize a plan, and then we'll synthesize that plan, which means put it back into the environment, and basically what does that mean to stakeholders? We'll then empathise with them to find out how they're feeling about something. So if we go to people and say, what do you think of this plan? Will it work for you? What kind of problems? And at any time you can go back and evaluate more options because it's not worked. Whatever we do, we'll either adapt or respond. We'll either adapt the plan by going back to evaluate options, or we'll respond to it. Now then, if we use social and emotional intelligence more than, say, rational, we'll have a relational response. So there's either rational or relational. What we really want is to go through all this and have a more holistic, humanistic type of response, really. But anyway, so this is going on all the time. It's quite complicated. It'll be more complicated than this. Obviously, it's always going backwards and forwards. As I said, the map is not the territory. Thing is, they've got all this information. How can we use that? Well, I use this thing called EDUCE, the art of infinite thinking. So we have to think about the fact that when we make a decision, we have in our minds that it might not be finite, but it's a good idea to make a decision and then work it out along the way. So, as I said before, most of the time, because these people are very competitive and controlling, they tend to run businesses. So we'll call these people entrepreneurs. We'll call these the managers. So the entrepreneurs and managers and the people that succeed in the world, they kind of control the world. Okay? So they tend to go down this situation, down this cascade, if you like. Information comes in, they sense, evaluate, categorize, analyze, conclude, strategize, and come up with a rational response. And that then works well for them. Unfortunately, it doesn't work well for these people or the ecology or the environment. Often is the case. So really, if you want to make good decisions, follow this acronym here. I call it the art of infinite thinking. Evaluate the situation, decide what it means and what you're going to do about it. Understand the impact on the ecology, on other people, and whether, go that bit further, if you like, to understand, really what will be the impact. Then we commit to doing something, and then immediately go back to evaluate. So evaluate, decide, understand the impact, commit to doing some changing direction or completing the plan, and then immediately back to evaluate. Okay? So, as a bit of a joke, I said, well, okay, why is politics pointless? Well, it's pointless because this is conservative. This would be seen as right wing, and this would be seen as left wing. So that's a bit like saying, well, I've got a right hand and a left hand. Which one shall I use for 4 years? I'm totally apolitical. I think it's a pointless exercise being political, defending the ideology of something. And so you've got to think about this yourself. Are you holding back evolution by just sticking to a one-sided ideology? You're not going to. If you've got both hands and you're able to use both hands, then why wouldn't you do it? So why would you use just rational thinking and forget about relational thinking? And why would you think about just relational thinking and not think about rational thinking? You really need to combine the two. You don't want to be rowing down a river and just paddling with the right oar, because you will go round in circles. And then you think, oh, well, actually, that's not working out too well. I'll go round in circles the other way. And for a while, it seems like that you're passing and going forward, but actually you're just passing through the centre line, going through the other way. This is why I think, really, politics is pointless as it is. What we need is to collaborate. We didn't compete our way to the top of the evolutionary tree. We collaborated our way there. And the problem we've got at the moment is that quite often people and business and stuff like and people that are in charge, governments, they quite often forget about the ecology and the relational aspect of what impact that has. So business externalise costs because it doesn't fit their map of the world. This is how bias is a major problem in decision making. So without that self-awareness, you're not going to realise the damage that you're doing. If you keep using one in preference over the other, then eventually you'll have problems moving down the line. Anyway, part of this bit here to help with this is when you get to the analysis stage is that you can come over here and think about this. So if you're thinking about the cause or the options that you've got, use this diagram. There's lots of different tools, but I find this quite useful. List all the cause of the options that you've got down there. Look at the first effects. All right, cause, effect. List all the effects of utilising that option, and what will the effects be. Similarly, when you analyse the situation, you can look at the causes, and then COVID-19, global warming, inequality, social injustice, blah blah blah. What's the first effect? And then don't leave it there. Look also on the second effect. What's the second order effect? Then what? And then you could ask, what's the third order effect? What else? And then you could come to some conclusions along that thing there. When you do the first effect, what's really important, especially in situations like this, is find the balance of it. Okay, because you'll either think this is a great opportunity or a bad opportunity, but actually usually find that there's a balance of both. And so here, this is a really good exercise. What's the positives about this, and what's the negatives? If you're talking about the situation we're in now, possible recession, depression, COVID-19, things like that. As bad as it is, you could probably find a long list of negatives to say about this. But you as a leader, or if you're wanting to evolve and grow stronger out of this, you've got to be able to switch your minds. Okay, get out of the rut that you're in and get into the next into a more positive state. But at least you want a balanced perspective. So don't stop writing down an equal and opposite column. They must balance out at least. Okay, so I hope that's been helpful. As I say, the first right answer is not necessarily the best right answer, but it's important to make that decision and adapt along the way. And also, just remember the juice model here. As I say, there should be a link or something, and then you'll find these tools on there. By all means, just ping me a message if you want to have any understand any more about this, ask any questions. Yeah, use this as a way of working through any challenges that you might have now.